Alright, CNT125, Routing Protocols Lab. So I downloaded a copy of the lab. I have it here. Let's take a quick peek at the whole lab before we dig into anything on the lab. What we're going to do, I'm going to scroll to the next page here. We have a network we're going to hook up where we have basically three networks, a LAN here, a WAN here, LAN here. We're going to hook this up. We'll need to put our own IPs in, which we'll do in a minute. Once we get it hooked up and running, we are going to put on three different routing protocols. We'll do a distance vector, and once we get it running, we'll do some tests on it and learn a little bit about the distance vector. We'll take that off, put a link state on, OSPF. We'll work with that in a little bit, do some packet captures, etc. Once we do that, we'll take that off, then we'll put a hybrid on, EIGRP, and work with that in a little bit. And again, do some Wireshark tests, etc. Learn about that one. So we're going to set this network up, and then once we set it up, we'll kind of like rinse and repeat. We'll get it running, take that off, put the next one on, take it off, and so forth. So we can see these routing protocols in action. Now, you'll notice the network has no IPs in. Well, we've done our subnetting labs, so we are going to put our own IP scheme on here to practice what we've been learning, what we have learned. So here on the first page is our subnet map, or our subnet planning we'll do, and then we'll transfer those numbers over to our network map. Okay, so let's dig in. This first podcast, we'll get our game plan figured out with our subnetting. This network's using a 170, which is a class B/16. That's the default. So here, let me start putting some numbers in that we can use to get us started. So let me do this. Remember, this is a /16 by default. We'll edit that. The default on this guy is 255.255.0.0. That's what's normally there. We saw that we needed three networks. We have three subnets. So to get three subnets, I could borrow 2 bits. I think in the past we borrowed 4 this time, or we borrowed 3 to get 8. I think this time we'll borrow 4 bits, just so we see some new numbers. We'll have plenty of extra subnets for this one. So if we borrow 4 bits, okay, let's do this real quick. 2 to the 4 is going to give me 16 subnets. All right, now that I have that, let's come over here. Let's edit our subnet mask. So we'll borrow 4 bits, 1, 2, 3, 4. There is my third octet where the subnetting occurs. So that'll now be my subnet mask. My bit count here, when I add 4, I'm going to have a /20. So there was my default with 4 more. There's my /20. Here I need to convert this octet here, this third octet, to decimal. Well, when I do that, I get 240. So this will be a 240.0. All right, with 4 bits borrowed, we have 8 left in this octet plus the 4 we didn't use here. So we are going to have 12. 2 to the 12 will be how many addresses per subnet. So if I do a 2x to the y 12, I can figure out that I have 4,096 addresses per subnet. Get over there, 4,096, of which 4,094 per subnet is usable. Remember, subtract the 2 for the network and the broadcast. All right. Now that we have that, I'm going to put again, the subnetting is occurring in this third octet. So I'm going to take this third octet here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. There's the third octet in binary. There's my bits that I'm borrowing. If I look at my bits, I have borrowed over to the 128, 64, 32, 16. I borrowed to the 16 place. So my subnets are going to go up by a factor of 16. So I can start off by putting my subnets here. 0, 16, 32, 48, 32, yep, 48. After 48, we have 64. And then we have 80. And then we have 96, and so forth. Plenty more than we need, but there's at least our game plan started. If this first subnet starts at 0 and the next one starts at 16, this first subnet has to end at 15. This next one has to end at 31 because the next one starts at 32. This one has to end at 47 because the next one starts at 48. This has to end at 63. This has to end at 79. This has to end at 95, and so forth. Again, I have plenty more subnets here than I need. Okay, so let's get the network numbers in. Well, hopefully remember with our network number here, it's all zeros in the host portion. Oh my goodness, all zeros in the host portion. Okay, and my broadcast is all ones in the host portion. Okay, so there's my little reminders. So all zeros in the host portion over here, well, I can just take the fourth octet and tag it on. That would be all zeros in the remaining host portion, that fourth octet. So this one's fairly easy to go right down the line and tag on this fourth octet. The fourth octet being all host, so all zeros. So .0, .0, .0 right down the line. Okay. Broadcast address, the host portion is going to be all ones. Well, I can take and tag on the last octet as 255 because that would be all ones in binary. So this one is pretty easy when I remember my rule. All right, we are almost there. 255 and 255. Excellent. Now, the usables, this is the numbers we really want. And to get them, I'm going to add 1 to this to get the first usable. And I'll subtract 1 from this to get the last usable. So I'm going to plug the whole number in here. It's really 170.70. We've just been working with the last two octets. So now I'm going to write the whole thing out. 170.70.0.0 is the network number. And if I increase by 1, it'll be, just like the odometer of my car, far right digit, far right column. That would be my first usable. 170.70.16.1. 170.70.32.1. Whoops, 32.1. 170.70.48.1. 170.70.64.1. 170.70.80.1. 170.70. Oh my goodness, Mr. Brown, clicking all over the place. There we go. Get back here. 170.70. 96.1. So that's the first usables. The last usables will be this number, subtract 1. So I'll do 170.70, 15.255. That would be this number right here. I'm going to subtract 1, so I'll subtract 1 from that last column. Drive backwards a mile. Don't do that for real. But if I drove backwards a mile, my odometer would go down in the last slot, if you will. So 170.70, 15, actually no, 31, 255, that would be the broadcast, subtract 1, 254. 170.70, 47.255, subtract 1, 254. 170.70, 63.255, subtract 1, 254. And that is probably the easiest way to get these numbers and make sure you're right. 255, subtract 1, 254. Because if you start subtracting here, you've deleted a whole bunch of numbers that are usable. 95, 255, minus 1, 254. So now I have my usable numbers here. All right, I'm going to do a quick save as. And we'll do this right here, and I'm going to call it markup for me so I know. I will save. All right, now that I have that, let's come down to our network map. And just like we did before, let's take our subnets and put them right in here. So I will take these. I'll use the 1632.48. I'm going to skip the 0 just so we can definitely see our subnet numbers. Okay, there's nothing wrong with starting with 0. That's actually very practical. But I'm going to put the 16.0 and so forth. So I'm going to say this guy right here is 170.70.16.0 subnet. 170.70.32.0. 170.70.48.0. Okay, so 1632.48. There's my subnets. All right. Now let's get some usable numbers. The router we're going to give first, the switch second, then workstation. So this up here. Let's get some ports up here. I'm gonna keep myself consistent and say for my WAN link I'm going to use fast Ethernet 0/1 and gigabit 0/0/1. That'll be my two WAN links for the 4221 and the 2011. I'll use both the fast Ethernet 01 and gigabit 01. So for my WAN LANs, I'll use 00 on these. That way I'm kind of consistent on my plan. So my IP address here, I'm just going to put it underneath because I think it's going to get crowded. 170.70.16.1 would be the first usable, /20 for my subnet mask, which hopefully you remember. 255, 255, 240.0. Oops, 240.0. Mr. Brown's having trouble typing. There we go. So there would be the IP for the router. For the switch, 170.16.2. I would use the next usable. Okay, again, /20. That's a lot easier to write. Coming down here to the workstation, I'm going to jump up a block of numbers, if you will, 170.16 down. I'm going to do 10. That way I have a couple of remaining numbers there that aren't being used. 255, 255, 240, 0. And then my gateway, 170.16.1, which is the router port that I'm connected to right here. This router port. So there's that LAN done. This WAN up here, 170.70.32.1, that's the first usable. Again, /20. Over here, 170.70.32.2, /20. That WAN link is done. Let's come over to this LAN. Over here, we'll have 170.70.48.1, first usable. Again, /20. Let's do the switch. Switch 170.70.48.2. Again, /20. And then the workstation, again, I'll jump up a small block of numbers, 170.70.48.10. 255, 255, 240.0. And then the gateway, 170.70.48.1. And I'm getting that from follow, right here. Boom. Boom. That's the router port I'm attached to. Okay? There is my network map, all configured and ready to go, or all planned out and ready to go. I have all the IP addresses I need for this network. Now, what I'm going to do, just for my own simplicity, I'm going to, right here, for me, since I made this, I'm going to open up my snipping tool, and I'm going to grab a quick picture of my network map so I can have that open as I'm scrolling down through the lab. And I will save this so I have it handy. We'll go to Documents, 125, and I'll call this my routing protocol map. And I'll save that so I have it handy, and then I can open that up and keep that off to the side as I'm doing the rest of the lab. When we come back in the next part of the lab, we'll start connecting in and configuring.